We're often taught that danger presents itself in an angry form, that predators announce themselves in obvious ways. But the film Get Out showed us something much darker. It showed us that the biggest threats are the friendly ones. There are multiple moments where Chris could have left, where every instinct is screaming at him to walk out. But he doesn't. Not because he doesn't see it, but because leaving would simply be rude. Get Out isn't just a film about racism. It's about the reflex to smooth things over, even when your body is screaming at you to run. This isn't a film about a man who didn't see the danger. It's about a man who saw it coming and stayed anyway. Because the threat didn't look like a threat. It looked like admiration, like curiosity, like compliments that lingered just a second too long. And by the time he realized what politeness was costing him, it was too late. This is Get Out. Chris Washington is a photographer. His work depends on reading people, catching details most people miss. The wrong kind of smile, the too long of a pause, the expression that doesn't match the words. He's trained to see what's exactly there, as opposed to what people want him to see. So when his girlfriend Rose invites him upstate to meet her family, he should be able to read the room, should be able to tell if he's actually welcome. The Armitage estate is exactly what you'd expect. Old money, sprawling property, white family with good intentions. From the moment Chris arrives, he notices everything. Dean's handshake is a little too enthusiastic, performed rather than genuine. Missy's hug lingers a beat too long, her eyes clinical even while her arms are warm. The house is all sunlight and manicured lawns, and suffocating pleasantness. Nothing looks wrong, which is exactly the problem. On the property are Georgina and Walter. They're the help, and they set off every alarm Chris has. Georgina talks like she's reading from a script she half remembers, her smile not quite syncing with her words. When a tear runs down her face mid-conversation, she wipes it away mechanically, like swatting a fly. Walter sprints through the yard at night, face locked and vacant, not jogging, not exercising, just running like something's chasing him that only he can see. Chris sees all of this. He's the only one who does. When he tells Rose something feels off, she has an explanation for everything. Georgina's just lonely and eccentric. Walter's competitive, he's training. These aren't warnings, they're quirks. Harmless oddities of wealthy white people in the countryside. So, what does he do? To push back on her explanation isn't just disagreeing with his girlfriend, it's something darker. It's accusing her of being blind to something more obvious, or complicit in something sinister. So he doesn't push. He catalogs the evidence, keeps the observations filled away, and stays quiet, because making it a thing would cost them more than ignoring it. By the time the party begins, Chris has already learned what reacting costs. Every interaction is a small violation dressed up as friendliness. One guest grabs his bicep without asking, testing its density like he's evaluating livestock. Another leans in with fascination to ask about sex. Is it better? The art dealer declares with complete sincerity that black is in fashion. Chris navigates this with a familiar toolkit, a tight smile, a non-committal response, a deflective joke. He's not intentionally being passive, but rather doing the exhausting work of de-escalation. Each comment taken individually is survivable, a paper cut, but enough paper cuts start to feel like something worse. And that's the trick. It's all small enough to swallow. Reacting to any one of them in isolation makes you look unreasonable. Nothing is never enough until it's too late. You're waiting for a reason that sounds legit, something you can say out loud. There's a moment during a party where another guest, Logan, behaves so strangely that Chris snaps a photo of him hoping to get a second opinion from his friend Rod back home. The camera flash triggers something. Logan's face contorts, blood streams from his nose, and he lunges at Chris screaming, "Get out." That's the movie telling him the truth. And the room immediately turns it back into a misunderstanding. Dean rushes over, explains it away as a seizure, and just like that, everyone acts like it didn't happen. Each time Chris gets close to leaving, the Armitages pull him back from the edge. But what makes this work? The house doesn't just catch him, it makes escape feel socially impossible. For Chris, not making a scene isn't a preference, it's training. It's years of navigating white spaces where the rules are never written down, but everybody knows them. Watch what happens with Jeremy, Rose's brother. Jeremy gets physical, invades Chris's space, speculates about his genetic advantages in a fight, challenges him to wrestle. It's a frat boy aggression dressed up as admiration, and it's deliberate. He grabs Chris in a headlock, testing him, provoking him, daring him to respond with force. Chris's response is textbook de-escalation, utilizing humor, deflection, and minimization. He doesn't match Jeremy's energy because matching it would confirm exactly what Jeremy's implying, that Chris is the physically threatening, aggressive black guy Jeremy seems eager to provoke. His politeness here isn't weakness, it's armor. It's the active work of refusing to become the stereotype being projected onto him. And Rose does the real work here. After every bizarre incident, she's there to make it feel normal. On the drive up, she reassures him, "My dad would have voted for Obama for a third time if he could." And that line, that's the whole movie. It reframes Chris's discomfort as paranoia. It places her family on the right side of things, making any further suspicion seem ungrateful, even prejudiced. When he's unsettled, she validates him just enough to keep his trust, then pivots to justification. She builds trust, then uses it to lead him deeper in. That's the exit fee. To leave now means distrusting not just her family, but her. The woman he loves, who's presented herself as his ally and sanctuary. Leaving would rupture the relationship. The fear of being wrong, of being the guy who ruined the perfectly good weekend because he's the person who sees racism everywhere, becomes larger than the threat unfolding in front of him. The house has made leaving more expensive than staying, even as the walls close in. If politeness is how this works, admiration is what lures him in. The Armitages don't deal in crude hatred. They are curators, collectors, fans. They don't want to erase blackness, they want to acquire it, consume it, inhabit it. This is racism, but with good manners. Dean's Obama line tells you everything. It's him trying to buy immunity before you even walk in the door. But it positions black excellence as an exception to be marveled at, and by extension, a quality he believes he can recognize and own. The party guests continue this. Their questions aren't hostile, they're appraisals. The wolves are not baring their teeth, they are debating the quality of his coat, the strength of his lineage, discussing how much they would be willing to pay for him. He's not a person to them. He's a collection of desirable traits. Hostility provides a clear enemy and a clear mandate. Fight or flee. But what is the appropriate response to someone telling you how magnificent you are in a tone that feels like objectification? He's being shopped. Traditional racism Chris could fight. He'd have clear grounds to leave, clear justification for anger. But this version asks to be thanked. It positions itself as an allyship, as curiosity, as progressive engagement. To resist it is to reject connection, to refuse generosity. The Armitages never need to abduct Chris. They never have to force him. They always make you say yes first. And the hypnosis scene is where you see it clearly. Missy doesn't drag Chris anywhere. She doesn't threaten him. After he witnesses Walter's disturbing midnight sprint, she intercepts him in the living room. "Come in and sit," she says warmly. "Let's nip this in the bud." She frames it as help, a wellness intervention. She makes tea, like this is normal, like this is care. She asks about his deepest trauma, the loss of his mother, with the demeanor of a concerned therapist. Her voice is soothing. Her questions feel like care. The weapon is not a gun or a knife. It's a teaspoon stirring in a china cup. Chris's guard is down not because he's foolish, but because everything is designed to disarm. He's being cared for, listened to, understood. His entry into the sunken place is triggered by his own vulnerable confession used against him. She asks him to revisit the night his mother died, the moment he froze in front of the TV instead of calling for help. As he relives the paralysis, she weaponizes it. "You're paralyzed," she tells him, "just like the day when you did nothing. Now, sink into the floor." He is not overpowered, he is guided, gently and politely, into total helplessness. This extends to the auction itself. It doesn't happen in the dungeon. It happens on the sunlit lawn during a genteel game of bingo. The bids are whispered, gestural. There's no drama, no auctioneer's gavel. Chris has no idea it's even happening. The winner is Jim Hudson, the blind art dealer who earlier expressed fascination with Chris's eye. He thought he was being complimented, but he was actually being priced. The sunken place is the central, terrifying metaphor of the film, and its true nature is often misconstrued. It's not unconsciousness, not sleep. It's full awareness, but you can't move. And that's the part that a lot of people miss. It's politeness taken to the end. That you see everything, understand everything, but stay utterly powerless. Chris doesn't black out. He watches with perfect clarity as the video in the basement explains the coagula procedure. He sees the glee on Jim Hudson's face as the man discusses taking Chris's eyes. He's watching the planning of his own annihilation. His mind is intact, hyper-aware actually, but now he's just a spectator in his own life. The polite smile he once wore as a shield has become the permanent fixed expression on the face he no longer controls. This is where you end up when you've ignored all the warning signs, when you've talked yourself out of every instinct, when you've chosen social grace over self-preservation one too many times. For Chris, this connected to something specific. The night his mother died. He was a kid. She didn't come home. He knew something was wrong, and he did nothing. So the sunken place is that frozen moment made physical. But it's not just about Chris. It's about the experience of anyone who understands the injustice around them, but feels individually powerless to change it. The employee who sees the corruption but needs the paycheck. The citizen who recognizes things are falling apart but feels their vote is meaningless. The partner who sees the manipulation but fears the loneliness of leaving. You get to keep your mind. You just don't get to do anything with it. There's no heroic empowerment in Chris's escape. Just a vicious, traumatic breaking of the rules. The politeness. All of it. His survival isn't a victory. It's a narrow, bloody evasion. The pivotal moment isn't strength. It's him finally shutting it off. Stuffed into the chair, listening to the surgery prep video, waiting for Jeremy to come to collect him, he does something radical. He claws pieces of cotton from the leather upholstery and stuffs them into his ears. He survives by shutting down the one channel they need, his brain. When Jeremy comes to retrieve him and tries the hypnosis trigger, it doesn't work. Chris attacks, stabbing him with a letter opener. He escapes the basement. He impales Dean with the antlers of a mounted buck, a hunting trophy turned weapon. He destroys Missy's teacup, then kills her in a violent struggle that follows. These aren't the actions of a triumphant hero. They're the desperate, brutal thrashings of a cornered animal. There's no swagger, no one-liners. It's frantic, ugly, necessary violence. Survival stripped of all dignity. Even the final confrontation with Rose strips away the last piece of a social contract. As she lies bleeding on the road, she tries her role one last time, calling him baby. Feigning confusion with victimhood, trying to reactivate his protective instincts. For a moment it holds, his face softens, he hesitates. Then he sees the police lights approaching. The film's original ending, where those lights meant his certain doom, would have been the system winning. No contest. The revised ending, with Rod's TSA vehicle arriving instead, offers a reprieve. But the tone stays grim. Chris isn't smiling. He's hollow, shell-shocked. He hasn't defeated the Armitages. He just escaped one house. What's wild about Get Out is how precisely it shows this whole thing playing out everywhere. Not through obvious domination, but through things we're told are good. Admiration, access, being polite. We see it at work, where danger rarely looks like a tyrant. It shows up as a charismatic leader who builds a family atmosphere while demanding crushing loyalty and unpaid overtime. It's a diversity initiative that celebrates cultural add while quietly promoting one way of thinking. To question it makes you not a cultural fit, someone rejecting a growth opportunity. We see it in relationships, love bombing and future faking, where a partner falls in love with the fantasy version of you. When the real you shows up, the admiration can turn into control or contempt. You're left wondering how you failed to live up to something you never agreed to. We see it online where appropriation gets reframed as homage, extraction as collaboration, surveillance as connection. These things understand that people fight clear enemies, so it refuses to be an enemy. It insists it's a friend, a fan, a benefactor. And the movie doesn't even pretend to fix that. There's no 5-point plan for escaping. Maybe that sounds unsatisfying, but that's the point. It makes the slow, polite sink visible. It shows us that the most binding chains are often the ones we help fasten because we want to be polite, to be understood, to belong. In a world where the trapdoor is hidden under a welcome mat, the film asks, at what point does the cost of civility become the loss of self? And the more uncomfortable question, where are you still sitting? Cataloging the warnings, waiting for permission to leave? The first step to getting out is realizing you're already in. Get Out isn't offering you an escape route, it's offering you a mirror. And if you saw yourself in any of this, the room you stayed in too long, the warning signs you cataloged but didn't act on, the person you kept trusting because leaving would cost too much, drop a comment. I want to know where you recognize the pattern. And if this landed, hit that subscribe button. I do this kind of analysis weekly, films that lie to us and why we believe them. I'll see you in the next one, but in the meantime, thank you for watching, and please take care of yourself.